A massive weather pattern change is coming to the United States over the next few weeks as La Nina strengthens and becomes alive again, where we are expecting a huge shift on where winter storms and snowfall in the United States, in addition to the temperatures, as colder weather and warmer weather will be in completely different areas compared to what we've been dealing with for the last couple of months of winter. So in today's forecast, we're going to break down exactly what you need to know about these big changes and why we expect winter storms and colder weather to be in completely different areas compared to just a few weeks ago. So far this winter, we've had a ton of different winter storms, and a few of which have been uncharacteristic, like the Gulf Coast winter storm we just saw a few days ago. But as we go into February, we are expecting the weather to change entirely, where Gulf Coast winter storms or even Southern Plain winter storms are going to become a lot less frequent. And the main reason why is because I think La Nina is finally waking up. La Nina began back in December and has not really been a big factor here for our weather pattern so far this winter. It's been kind of a neutral stage almost, it feels like, between El Nino and La Nina, but I think La Nina is really going to ramp up here over the next few weeks, which is going to change the weather entirely. So this is a typical El Nino weather pattern for reference, which is something we saw last winter, where there was a lot more rainfall along the southern tier of the United States with a Pacific jet stream. In addition to that, drier weather was a much more bigger frequency last winter across areas in the Dixie Alley and then back into the Ohio Valley. And then we also had much warmer than average weather across the northern plains and the Pacific Northwest. But this right here is exactly what I think will be happening as we go into February across the United States, where we actually will have drier than normal weather for many areas like the Gulf Coast back into the southeast, and areas like the southwest have already been dealing with this, but drier than normal weather will continue in those areas. Aside from the big rainmaker that's happening this weekend, wetter than normal weather across areas like the Ohio Valley, which means more rain and snow is likely, and then also much colder weather is expected, especially across the Midwest, and then eventually back into areas like the Northeast. I think we'll be dealing with a relatively cold February, in addition to the northern plains as well. Those areas will be getting some brutal cold around the early to mid portions of February. So recently, we've been dealing with a very interesting weather pattern where our jet stream has been coming well out of Canada, dipping down towards the Gulf Coast, which actually allowed for that big Gulf Coast winter storm only a few days ago. And we also saw another winter storm right before that one that impacted areas from Texas all the way back over towards the East Coast. Now, the weather's going to be changing a lot over the next couple of weeks, where we're not going to see anything like that. Instead, what we're going to be seeing is a more interesting weather flow, where the jet stream is actually going to be dipping way further back to the west, which should allow our focus for both winter storms and big rainmakers to be located here across the Great Plains and then also back into the Ohio Valley, which means that I think snowstorms are going to be much more frequent in the central and northern plains, and as well as back through the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. And on the other hand, I think severe weather is actually going to ramp up here very soon, where damaging winds, hail, and tornadoes will be possible in areas back through the Dixie Alley and also back into the southern plains. So I think the weather is going to get very interesting, especially as we go into the first couple of weeks of February. But in addition to that, we are going to see some ridging in between these big weather events, which means that a lot of warm air is going to start to build up here along the southern tier of the United States. On the flip side, all that cold air is going to be back up into here into Canada, which means that we are likely going to have some breaks in the action. We're going to see some warm air build, and then eventually we're going to see some mixing, which I do think will lead to some big severe weather events here over the next few weeks as we eventually see troughs eject over the Rocky Mountains. But notice how much further back to the west the jet stream is. It is a massive change compared to what we've seen so far this winter, where a lot of what we've seen is a jet stream that's coming right out of Canada and then moving right into the eastern tier of the United States, which led to a lot of colder weather throughout almost all of January. So again, the weather is going to be very different here as we go into February. I'm just giving you an idea here that, we're going to be dealing with something that we've not seen at all this winter, which is going to be frequent storms, but they're going to be in a completely different area compared to what we've been seeing. So in the short term, we are anticipating some snow and as well as a couple of winter storms. Beginning with what's happening this week, we are expecting some snow to move across Canada, which will eventually move into the Great Lakes region in the northeast. As we go into Tuesday, this will be moderate to even at times heavy snowfall. We might end up actually seeing a winter storm out of this in the higher elevations of New England on Tuesday. Eventually, as we go into Wednesday, another shot of snow will move across the northeast. It will likely be very quick, so I don't really anticipate this to be stacking up a lot of snow, but a few inches of snow will be possible there in the northeast on Wednesday. Eventually into Thursday, that is when the first of many storms will be forming here with this very different jet stream dip that's going to be really bringing a lot of storms out of areas like the Pacific Ocean, eventually moving over the Rockies, and then eventually moving into areas like the Midwest. So this is the first of many that we're going to see like this, where we're going to be dealing with showers and even maybe some thunderstorms, perhaps a little bit of severe weather in the southern plains on Thursday, and then also a winter storm aspect to that, which will be snowfall. And currently we are anticipating that snow to be back over in the Rocky Mountains as we go into Thursday, and then eventually by Friday into Saturday. Notice how this will start to move more to the east, and we're going to be dealing with a wet Saturday more than likely across the southeast, in addition to snow and even maybe freezing rain happening from the Midwest back into New England. But again, the exact details here are uncertain as we are still several days out. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below. We'll keep you posted with the latest if anything does change there. And then eventually into the following week, again, uncertainty grows a lot with any sort of forecast here, but you'll notice that the weather pattern remains very similar, where we're going to continue to see this big dip in the jet stream back over in the Rocky Mountains, which will continue to bring storm systems from areas like the Pacific Ocean, eventually moving over the Rocky Mountains and creating a mix of more snow across areas in the northern plains and the Midwest, and then more rainfall across areas in the southern plains and the southeast. Now, I do want to point out that this is all still a fluid situation. There definitely could still be a couple of times, in February where we see the jet stream that actually dips back over here in the northern plains and eventually brings the potential for some sort of big snow event or ice event back over in the southern plains or the southeast. That can't be ruled out by any means, but the general weather pattern, especially in the first week or two of February, will be more geared towards a jet stream that is going to be dipping over the Rockies, which will actually keep many of us on the warmer side of things, I think, throughout a lot of February. And you're probably wondering, how cold or warm will it be in February? Well, I've already kind of hinted at it that it's going to be a milder February, I think, for much of the United States. But as we go into this week, we are going to be dealing with above average temperatures for most of the country. There will be a couple of shots of cold air back over in the northeast from those winter storms that'll be moving across Canada, which will eventually bring snow to the northeast. And then eventually into the weekend and into early next week, the temperatures will remain around, if not above average. The GFS model continues to hint that the temperatures will remain above average for most of the country during the first week of February, before eventually we have one or maybe two shots of Arctic air sometime around the later half of the first week, if not into the second week of February. So definitely gonna be something to watch for. Again, we are anticipating that we will still be seeing Arctic blasts and as well as big winter storms. Again, I do think though overall for at least the next couple of weeks, the weather is going to be much warmer, and a lot of it is going to have to do here with La Nina as it continues to intensify in the Pacific Ocean. And the Climate Prediction Center is right on board with this forecast, indicating above average temperatures are likely during the month of February across the East Coast, back through the Gulf Coast, and also into the Four Corner states. And then Arctic blasts and as well as cold blasts will be more frequent back over in the northern plains and the Pacific Northwest, which means conditions will likely end up being below average when it comes to temperatures. Now, on the other hand, rain and as well as snow are going to be above average, especially back over in the Ohio Valley, Northeast, and Midwest. I do anticipate there to be several inches of snow in February. I know there's many areas in the Midwest that are in a deficit right now for snowfall. I think we're going to be seeing some good snowfall here during the month of February. Back over in the Pacific Northwest, I do anticipate this area as well to be seeing above average rainfall and some snow in the higher elevations, and then below average rain and snow expected across the Gulf Coast to the southeast and as well as back through the Four Corner states. So if you are hoping for another big Gulf Coast winter storm, I don't want to say it will definitely not happen because I don't want to, jinx it here. However, I do strongly think we'll not be seeing another Gulf Coast winter storm probably until aliens come out of the sky. So overall, I don't think we're going to be seeing a winter storm anytime soon along the Gulf Coast. But again, if something does change, we'll let you know. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon down below so you're notified with the latest updates. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like the button down below and subscribe if you've not already.